The meeting will begin shortly. Please find your seats. The meeting will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. The meeting will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. Please welcome to the stage, Neela Ibrahimi.
The video you just saw was recorded 4 months before Afghanistan fell. It was the first time I ever faced such enormous uncertainty. I could have ended up in Pakistan without access to education as an undocumented refugee, or I might have been sent back to Afghanistan, where I would have been stripped of my value and rights as a human being. So at that time, I had to say yes to leaving. After a year full of ups and downs, my family and I made it to Canada. Now, when it comes to refugees, people often assume moving to a new country means starting from zero. I don't believe that's true. Refugees carry a wealth of experience, wisdom, and courage. Yet when I first arrived in Canada, I didn't feel like I carried any of that. I had just started 10th grade and was simply grateful to continue my education and be with my family. But over time, I noticed something. Afghanistan was almost always described through the lens of gender inequality, poverty, and war in the Western world. And while these issues are real and must be addressed, I felt something was missing: the human side of Afghanistan. The side I still miss today: school trips with friends to perform on national TV, evenings filled with laughter over shared tea, and the place where I first learned to stand against injustice and taboos. Afghanistan was a loving home, despite the unsafety and political instability. It was still the country where I found my voice, where history was filled with subjugators and oppressors, yet also with the most outspoken and courageous people I know, like my mother, who lived through the first Taliban regime, but still taught me to fight for my rights. So when I realized this gap in how Afghanistan was understood in the West, I began sharing my story. It was painful to relive those moments, but I knew it was necessary. Because that lack of awareness was one reason the world hesitated to invest in Afghan girls' futures. That's why I created Her Story, a platform where Afghan girls can share their own experiences with the mission to build a future where Afghan women are seen, heard, respected, and included in the conversations shaping their lives in the world. We interview girls still in Afghanistan who refuse to give up, finding ways to create and learn by starting clothing brands, launching online photography archives, painting, or building small business despite the restrictions. Since the Taliban's return, women and girls have been stripped of their rights piece by piece. First, they were banned from attending school beyond 6th grade. Then, women were barred from working, from choosing how to dress, from leaving their homes freely. They were banned from gyms, parks, and even from speaking in public. Many provinces lost internet access under Taliban orders, and most recently, books written by women have been banned in universities. This is the erasure of women from the face of the country. They are being silenced, excluded, and denied any role in shaping their own lives. That's why it's more important than ever to speak up. Afghanistan is living through a form of gender apartheid, and the world must be remembered of that, and not just through tragic headlines, but by witnessing the potential of Afghan girls. That's why our team at Her Story is launching a new talk show series where we will host Afghan women in the diaspora, the businesswomen, the engineers, the actresses, the singers, and changemakers, sharing their stories, their wisdom, and their courage with the world. What's happening in Afghanistan is not just an Afghan issue. It's a global issue, and it needs our attention now more than ever. I know it can feel overwhelming when human rights are under attack around the world, but I want to remind you that every action you take, big or small, matters. Whether it's fighting for girls' education, refugee rights, or human rights, we must be reminded that our voices matter. There's a saying I once heard: only those who have lost their voices truly understand the value of speaking up. But I don't believe everyone needs to lose their voice to believe in something. I know we all here share the same belief, a vision of building a better world. That's why we're here. And as long as we hold on to that belief, we can achieve it together. Last year, I attended CGI for the first time and was inspired by the leadership and the journey of Secretary Clinton. So much that I applied to Wellesley College, just because she did. And just like her, I got in. I'm back this year, and I'm introducing her to the main stage. It is now an honor to welcome Secretary Clinton to the stage.
I, am rarely speechless. But thank you so much, Neela, for that introduction, but much more than that, for sharing your story and for being part of the CGI community. I am so excited she's going to Wellesley, my alma mater. It's a thrill for me. And certainly, I hope her story, her individual story, and the her story that she tells about Afghan women is an inspiration to all of us to keep going no matter the challenges we face. Because Neela was unafraid to literally lift her voice, as we saw in the beginning video, as a 13-year-old singing despite the terrible taboos and oppression that girls and women face in Afghanistan, which is gender apartheid. And now here she is, still speaking and giving other Afghan women a chance for their voices to be heard. The inspiration that she gives to me is how I feel about this CGI meeting as we wrap up. Over the last 2 days, you certainly have lifted me, but I think all of us, with your voices, your energy, and your commitments. When Bill started CGI 20 years ago, the goal was to build a community to bridge the gaps between what the private sector could produce and the public sector could provide, to form a community of doers and change makers. And since then, more than 10,000 partners have made commitments to action that have changed countless lives. And today's CGI's model of collective commitment is more urgent than ever before. To help us meet this moment, when Bill and Chelsea and I were talking with our CGI team about what this year should look like, we brought back a model that CGI had developed to respond to the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, working groups. Some of you might remember that we met in Chicago to really focus on what needed to be done in our own country and around the world because of what had happened in the economy with the collapse of the financial system. And the response to this model of working groups and bringing people together to literally pull up a chair to a table and get to work has been incredible. Now, I know a couple of blocks away at the UN, there has been a lot of gloom, and sadly for good reason. But on this side of 6th Avenue, over 1,100 people from 63 countries spanning the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors have stood up with what one attendee called dignified optimism. Nearly half of you who joined our CGI working groups are first-time CGI attendees. And these rooms have been overflowing, not just with enthusiasm, but literally with people. More chairs had to be brought in, more space had to be made. People were sitting second chair around some of the tables. And look, I know it can feel pretty lonely right now to be someone who cares about the fate of humanity. You know, that's a value that I'm proud to share with you, because at the end of the day, you know, who we are, how we treat each other, what we do with our precious time on this earth really, really matters. And coming together this week at CGI is an antidote to the kind of despair and concerns and even fear that we have seen over the last months. Our working groups have been a chance to stop wringing our hands and rolling up our sleeves instead. And we are just starting to process feedback. We've had dozens of conversations in each of these working groups that are so memorable and point forward to action. But let me give you a glimpse of just a few of the next steps that will inform the action agendas going forward. And you can cheer for your working group if you are so inclined. Out of the Innovative Finance Working Group, Kiva Microfunds, a longtime CGI partner, will launch a new social enterprise fund of at least $10 million in 2026 in partnership with corporate foundations, because we are all in this together. The activists, the philanthropists, the corporate representatives. The Health Working Group focused on using AI to overcome systemic gaps in chronic care. One project that came out of this group will expand maternal telehealth in Zimbabwe, something that we hope will be a life-saving innovation. In the Education Working Group, the Clinton Foundation's own program, Too Small to Fail, which works with families and other adults in young children's lives to read, talk, and sing to these children to build their brains, they have formed a partnership with Unidos US to lead a conversation about expanding access to learning in the early years. And the group is exploring a pilot program in 3 US cities in 2026 to provide immigrant families with early education resources to help their own children prepare. The Human Rights and Democracy Working Group focused on issues like accelerating women's democratic participation and defending LGBTQ+ rights in these tough times. We also heard ideas from civic education programs for at-risk youth in Northern Ireland, as well as anti-authoritarian initiatives worldwide. This is an all-hands-on-deck for democracy and human rights, and we are going to do our part. Members of our climate working group dug into the tough realities of climate change, which, just by the way, is not a hoax, despite what we heard at the UN this week. In fact, they came out with a number of bold plans, including creating a water fund to unlock economic opportunities for millions of people, led by our longtime partners at water.org. Building climate adaptation hubs across the tropical belt, starting at COP30 in November in Brazil. And opening new markets to support regenerative farmers who need our support to find those markets so that we can change the way agriculture is done so it's more sustainable, providing food for people without contributing to the climate crisis. The Economy Working Group focused on challenges like the care economy and access to capital. Out of that discussion came a commitment to launch a global network for national service that will strengthen, expand, and scale national service programs around the world, one of the ways to bridge divides and bring particularly young people together to work on behalf of a common cause. And the Truth and Information Working Group discussed ways to cut through misinformation and disinformation and focus on building community. In the next year, a top priority will be advocating for state and local leaders in this country and around the world to enact responsible regulation on tech platforms and to give users more ownership over their private data, a very important piece of our response. And lastly, the humanitarian response working group emphasized the need for innovation, preparedness, and localized responses to humanitarian crises around the world, especially as government aid budgets are slashed. And this includes action items like creating a shared information system among NGOs responding to disasters, new funding opportunities, and innovative research-based tools to find out what's working and how to do more of that while discarding perhaps old-fashioned approaches that no longer are having the effect we want. So these are literally just snapshots of some of the commitments and partnerships and networks and ideas that came out of the working group. So let's take a moment to give a big round of applause to all of our working groups, the heads of them, the note takers, and everyone. But as enthusiastic as I am, I have to admit, this can seem like a pretty dark time. But as one of my favorite predecessors, as First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, memorably said, "It's better to light one little candle than curse the darkness." And so that's what we're doing here at CGI. We're lighting as many lights as we can in the darkness. And we will tend them. We will keep them going. We will help them grow. We will pass on our light to others so that they can light their own way forward. We've seen this time and again at CGI. You know, at last year's meeting, we launched the Coalition for Mutual Aid for Sudan. The conflict in Sudan has been the most deadly, has displaced the most people, has caused the most horrific hardship that is imaginable. And we wanted to join hands with people who cared about doing what they could to alleviate the suffering and to support the Sudanese people who had been so committed to democracy just a few years ago that they overthrew a dictator, and then they saw men fighting for power, waging a civil war against one another in order to dominate. And they have done so in a violent, terrible conflict. So the people who came together to make a commitment to Sudan have been working diligently since that time here at CGI. And I have to say, their impact has been so remarkable in such terrible, hard circumstances. Their example is how the working groups should work. Come up with the idea, make the commitment, follow through, and we will be with you every step of the way. And we will help you find new partners, and we will help you find resources to fulfill your commitments. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of the coalition's members, Haneen Ahmad, of the Old Omdurman Emergency Response Room, who will give us an update on their commitment to ending the suffering in Sudan. Coalition members. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Secretary Clinton. I am Haneen Ahmed, External Relations Officer, Emergency Response Rooms in Sudan. In a makeshift clinic in Khartoum, a doctor, once a professor, stitches a wound by flashlight. In a remote village in Darfur, volunteers negotiate with armed groups for a single corridor to deliver food. These are emergency response rooms, not buildings, but networks of courage. Picture what condition they are facing, a community under siege in Al-Fashir, North Darfur. In Kadugli and Adalin, South Kordofan, cut off from the world, no hospitals, no clean waters. Then an outbreak, cholera, dengue fever, a child falls ill. In this moment, the ERRs are the first and the only responders. They are the early warning system, the rapid response team, and the trusted messengers, all in one. Their value, built on local access, knowledge, and trust, is irreplaceable. They are the moment we realize that to save a nation, you must empower its people. We are solving man-made problems with women and youth-led grassroots movement. The terrifying diversity of this conflict demands on diversity of approaches. In one locality, a room, it's a telemedicine hub. In another, it's women-led collective distributing seats and tools. In a third, it's youth volunteers providing life-saving activities. This hybrid, local, agile model is our strength. We recognized then that the most effective response to the crisis was not arriving from outside, but was rising from within. It was found in the courage of local volunteers, teachers, engineers, students. Our commitment to action is to fortify and expand emergency response rooms as a lifeline for people across Sudan, starting within Khartoum state rooms. We are building coordinating networks across all 18 states and 118 localities of Sudan, ensuring no communities is left behind through the Localization Coordination Council. The story of the ERRs is not just a story about crisis response. It's a story about fundamental shift in power and agency. It challenges the very core of how we think about aid. For too long, the default has been a top-down model, large systems delivering help to passive recipients. The ERR turned this model on its head. They demonstrate that the most effective, agile, and trusted first responders are always local. We are not doing this alone. Our partners range from the brave neighborhood volunteers who are the true first responders, local NGOs, to international organizations like CORE, UNICEF, Center for Disaster Philanthropy, and others who are providing resources to scale this scourge. Our impact is measured in millions of meals distributed, thousands of medical procedures conducted, and most importantly, in the sustained hope of millions of Sudanese who know that they are not forgetting. We aim to directly support over 3 million beneficiaries within the next year. The Clinton Global Initiative provided the crucial platform that moved our model from a local response to a national strategy. CGI's focus on what's next is our mandate. We keep going because every one of those 118 localities, we've seen the same unwavering will to live and rebuild. And the world is taking notes. The extraordinary work of the ERRs was recognized with the nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize last year, and they and they are contenders once again. This isn't just humanitarian aid, it's a global recognition of a grassroots peacekeeping force. We ask that you join the LCC, philanthropists, and other stakeholders involved within the coalition of mutual aid in Sudan to mobilize funding for mutual aid. Last year at CGI, this group of philanthropists and other partners, led by the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, set out to mobilize $6.5 million by the end of 2026. Goal has been exceeded. They have set a new goal of $16 million by the end of 2026. Your support is needed. Your support is needed in Sudan, now more than ever. We are not just delivering aid, we are building the connective tissue for a future Sudan. We are honoring our common humanity by providing that even when a nation is under siege, its people cannot be defeated. Keep your eyes, actions, and efforts on Sudan. Thank you.
We always believe in the goodness in the community and the idea that they have the solutions. How can we really create something that can transform community? What we did was we served food, we cleaned the street. So now you are giving, and that's how the movement was really started.
And then the school came as really thinking about how do we fundamentally change perceptions around women and girls? And then how do you connect the most needed high-value services to a school for girls? So as people are coming to access the health clinic, they're passing the school for girls. As they're getting clean water, happens to be they get their clean water at the school for girls.
If you have a pure heart, the universe will see that light that is shining in the middle of a slum. It will attract positive energy of people that will work with you to achieve the goal. And then from there, things are just happening now. And the rest is history.
Softball has been around now for 20 years. We still approach development and our entry points through the same way, which is through bringing communities together into organized groups.
Community that can be empowered to make sure that their power, the power now belongs to the people.
We work with the county governments. We also work with other organizations to get the services where we need to have the services.
Shofco for me is the magic you see when people unite. The solutions are with the people.
Please welcome to the stage Jose Andres, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, President Vjosa Asmani, and President Bill Clinton.
All right.
So, I feel selfish here. These are three of my most favorite people, and I'm grateful that they're here. I want to start with President Asmani. And a lot of you who live in New York know this, but the largest number of Albanians and Kosovars in the world outside their native land are in New York. I have 2 Osmanis on my street. And my life has been sort of connected to theirs since I was president. And I'm very, very proud of you and your people. You were so young when you were elected, and you have managed to accelerate economic growth, and I think, excuse me, increase your security. But the theme of this conference is what's next. And you're a walking embodiment of good news. If you do the right thing and you give people a chance to have their lives and make the most of their lives, most people are good people and they will make the most of it. The Kosovars certainly have. So, tell us what's next.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, everyone. So good to be back at CGI and in this incredible panel. That is not an easy question for a politician, because when we say something, then we have to keep our promises. At least we're the kinds that keep their promises. However, as you rightly pointed out, Mr. President, Kosovo is such an amazing success story. But it's not ours alone, it's yours too, and it's the success story of so many allies and friends around the world. As I oftentimes mention, and I think it's worth mentioning nowadays when the world is facing so many horrible wars and conflicts, and so many people are suffering, losing their lives, and so much destruction, that the case of Kosovo has shown, and it's such a great embodiment of what freedom-loving nations around the world can achieve when they don't turn a blind eye. They don't turn a blind eye on a people oppressed that is simply trying to live their God-given right to be free, to live in freedom, and to have their basic human rights respected. And I grew up, like everyone else in my generation, and all the kids of Kosovo, initially in an apartheid-like regime that escalated to a genocidal war because of the butcher of the Balkans at that time, Slobodan Milosevic. And to grow up as a child of war, of course, is the most horrendous thing to anyone. However, when you experience something like that, and for the people of Kosovo to experience something like that, it has meant that after the war, after we became free because of our liberation struggle and your support, Mr. President, and the support of the American people and American leadership, we never, ever take our freedom for granted. Never. So I believe the fundamental has been to not take our freedoms for granted. And today, a little over 2 decades after we became free, and less than 2 decades after we became independent, Kosovo, according to the latest reports, is the #1 safest country in Europe. #1 safest. We're #3 in the world, according to Gallup International Rule of Law and Index, #1 in Europe, and the 3rd in the world in terms of safety and security. And safety and security, and focusing so much on that, has also brought economic growth. It has brought FDI, it has brought opportunities within the country. It has brought interest, but at the same time, it has positioned Kosovo as a reliable ally and partner to other countries in the world, because now we give back. Now we partner with countries, with the United States and other countries in Europe and elsewhere in other continents, to help those in need. Our soldiers serve shoulder to shoulder with US soldiers in peacekeeping missions around the world. We try to help, we try to share our experience. Our survivors of sexual violence during the war are now traveling the world to support survivors in Ukraine, in Sudan, in the Middle East, in other countries. So we're trying to give back while at the same time being very much aware that, again, freedom, even today, 26 years after the war, should not be taken for granted, because look at Ukraine. For 400 years, they had to undergo occupation after occupation, and now they need to regain their freedom once again. So we want to make sure, and that takes me to what's next. Our biggest bet is on our people. That has always been Kosovo's greatest strength. We have the youngest population in Europe, tech-savvy, multilingual, brilliant. They have been taking Kosovo forward. We're the country with the highest IT competitiveness rate, and that is what is driving our economy, and I think that's going to continue to be the driving force behind our economy. But the challenge, Mr. President, as you know too well, is maintaining peace, not just achieving it, maintaining it. We still have a threat in our northern border because Russia's craziness goes well beyond the territories around it and the countries around it. They constantly want to threat different parts of Europe, including the Western Balkans. And this triangle of evil that I call, with Russia, China, and Iran, trying to push forward their malign influence, whether through military, through economy, or through crazy ideology, are trying to undo everything that we've achieved together. We need to make sure that the same way that we've stopped them so far, we'll continue to stop them from now on. So maintaining peace is a precondition to our continued success. When you have peace, there's a chance for you to thrive. There's a chance for you to succeed, whether in economy, in education, in health, internationally, everywhere. But when you don't have that, there's simply a lost chance for success for any country, every society elsewhere. And my final point, another reason why Kosovo has been a success story, it's women. Women have been at the forefront. At the forefront of our peaceful resistance initially, then our armed resistance, our armed struggle, and then ultimately in the peacemaking and the peacekeeping, as well as the state-building process, where women are included and are part of the decision-making table. Peace always comes faster and it lasts longer. And that has been the story of Kosovo.
Thank you. You know, I'm highly prejudiced in this matter because of my early involvement with them, but it is true that I have two Kosovo families on the street where Hillary and I live, and our county, I think, has the highest percentage of Albanians from Albania proper and from Kosovo of any state in America. So I'm always getting the latest news. But the thing I want all of you to know is there's something wrong when people have to leave their homeland to have normal lives. And in our little town with 3,400 people, all the last 4 restaurants have belonged to Albanians. And we have a taco place where most of the employees are Mexicans or Guatemalans. But the owner is a Kosovo Albanian. But here's the interesting thing. The manager, the woman who gives me a beer every time I walk in, is a Serb.
Wow.
And when I was in there after we just opened the 2 latest restaurants, the woman asked me if I'd been to the new restaurants. I said, yeah, I've been to the one down the street, but I haven't been up the hill yet. And she said,
Not very clear. Not clear.
An Orthodox Christian Serbian said, well, you know, this restaurant up the hill belongs to a Muslim. and he is a wonderful man, and you should go. Now, why do we all have to leave home to learn those lessons? And how can we make it safe at home? So I want to thank you. Now, Dr. Tedros and I have been friends for many years because we met when he was the health minister in Ethiopia, and our foundation went there to set up an AIDS program and to help them to build out a health system that was quite good in Addis Ababa but didn't have enough presence in the massive number of rural communities they had. And I thought then and said then, I probably got him in trouble. I said, I would have been proud if as president, he had been the Secretary of Health and Human Services in America. Today, he'd have a hard time getting the job because he believes in vaccines. But this man has been through all the challenges globally, plus he had family in Tigray with all the problems that had happened within Ethiopia. He's had to live through that, keep running the World Health Organization, and watch others try to take it down. So, where are we now with global health? What can you still do? What do you need help doing? What can this group do to help?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, President Clinton. Thank you for reminding me the days when you supported me actually through CHAI when I was Minister of Health. The impact of your intervention still is felt, so thank you. Currently, of course, we're passing through a very difficult situation. Difficult times. Some colleagues call it interesting times, to make it a bit positive. As some of you may know, the US has withdrawn from WHO. And I was actually in Tanzania when I heard the news, helping Tanzania to fight the Marburg outbreak. Marburg is like Ebola's cousin. And I read the executive order and the 4 reasons put there. The 4 reasons for the withdrawal actually are 4 good reasons to stay in WHO for the US. And I was surprised, and still we haven't had any direct discussion. Otherwise, if these are the reasons, I think it's actually good reasons to stay than leave. But that action is lose-lose for the US. So globally, the question you asked, US's withdrawal makes the US unsafe and makes the world unsafe as well. It's a lose-lose. Of course, even after withdrawal, the US asks us for information on outbreak, on disease surveillance. We share. We don't even ask any question, because at the end of the day, we want the safety of the American people, because that's our agenda, nothing else. But since then, we're moving forward. I have already proposed to the member states a revised budget, significantly lower, which removes the US contribution completely. And based on the new budget envelope, we have already designed a new structure. We have completed prioritization. And we shaped up the organization, starting from the top leadership, reducing the size of the senior leadership by half. And the prioritization has already been completed and reached already at the front line. And we're, as we speak, giving notifications actually to our staff who are leaving, which really pains me. Because as the whole world knows, these are the same staff, WHO staff, who have been working during COVID pandemic day and night under serious pressure. They don't deserve dismissal. That's what pains me now, because it's not right. But of course, we have done all the process by following 3 principles: transparency, fairness, and humanity, and in a way that maintains the core mandate of the organization. But although the whole process is painful, because sending out my colleagues is painful, on the other hand, we see opportunity in this crisis. We see opportunity to strengthen the organization. We see opportunity to focus the organization on its core mandate, but learn to work through others, and even learn, even if we are less than what we used to be, with less to do more. And it's possible. And it's an opportunity as well to make the organization independent, because we should avoid in the future similar shocks. And the main reason, or the main challenge or risk for WHO is, which we have analyzed in 2017 and 2018, and we have been working to address that, dependency on few traditional donors is the main cause. And whenever the major donor withdraws, a shock like this happens. But not only that, with big amount of money coming from one donor, you can compromise your independence as well. So for the future, what we're trying to do is the roadmap that we have prepared, using this as opportunity to make the organization shock-proof, to prevent shocks like this in the future by broadening the donor base, and we're doing that, and also make it independent. When the donor base is broadened, we can absorb shocks, but at the same time, we can be independent. And our member states, when we proposed this is before even this crisis happened, in 2022, they approved an increase of membership fee by 50%. And that's actually helping us during this crisis to minimize the impact. If it wasn't for this finance reform, we would have laid off more than double of the staff we're laying off now. So the reform is working, and we're looking at it as opportunity, so we're moving forward. So there is the pain, but there is the opportunity. And I am confident that we can make the organization better. But we're not really worried about WHO only. But of course, the WHO one is there. It's less of a problem than the impact of the US funding cuts or other countries on developing world. Especially, the services which have been affected now, HIV, TB, malaria, and other programs. Even, in those countries, I think lives are being lost now because of the funding cuts. So the solution we are now agreeing, which I hope I'm encouraged that the countries are taking it seriously, is countries should move into self-reliance and mobilize domestic resources and see this as opportunity to ensure that. And we're helping them with mobilizing domestic resources. For instance, alcohol and tobacco taxes would be the immediate, and for the long term also insurance systems, because there are domestic resources that can help with this. And for me as an African, of course, not only Africa as a developing countries, but as an African, I think Africa doesn't need charity. It's fair terms, solidarity and cooperation. And I'm glad to see that in many meetings, even during this ANGA, many leaders saying the same thing and taking the steps to move forward. So both for WHO and for the countries affected, I think this is impacting, and we're even losing lives, but let's see it as an opportunity, and let's have a strategic solution that can prevent future similar challenges from happening. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you.
By the way, there's one thing I want to stress. Sorry again. There is one thing I want to stress. U.S. and any government have the right to use its money the way it wants. The only thing from WHO we asked at the time was the U.S. could have given some exit strategy. Instead of a sudden cut, maybe 6 months or 1 year. That would have addressed the problems we're facing now and could have saved the lives that we have lost. So the country has every right to use its money the way it wants, but it should not have been sudden, and there should have been a kind of transition. But for me, I think the answer is self-reliance, and we can mobilize domestic resources. And those donors who can support can focus on capacity building. So the countries should not get a fish, but should learn how to fish from the donors who can support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I first met Chef Jose Andres more than 25 years ago, when I was still president back in the dark ages. I just had a little while to go, and he was living in Washington, D.C., and he came to help do a community feeding around Thanksgiving. And Hillary and I went out to the site and served food. And I met this guy who was an immigrant from Spain. And I was totally blown away. I mean, most people who came to America trying to make their way didn't think about what they could do in a charitable role to help other people who needed help. He did. And I watched him for years. And after I got out of the White House, we started working together all over the world just by accident because of the work I did in places where he was active. And I have been amazed to see the speed with which he has built a system that can serve huge numbers of people in distressed areas. And when I was worried about the COVID epidemic, World Central Kitchen put a food distribution operation in the parking lot at my library in Arkansas, because we had a lot of low-income people who needed the food, and he trusted us to deliver the food beyond the site for the people who couldn't get there. And so we wound up, between the two of us, probably serving almost 1 million meals in just that one spot. And I have watched this guy pull rabbit out of the hat over and over and over again. And God knows we need a lot of rabbits pulled out of a lot of hats today. So now what are we going to do, friends? How are we going to keep going? How can we do more? How can we meet the needs?
How to keep going? I think, we're living in a moment that the clock is at 0, so let's see if I do this quick. That at times you feel like you don't want to wake up in the morning. Because when you see all the great things, it's great, but when you see all the things that are not so great, I don't know if you have that feeling that brings you down a little bit. And now is not the time to let the situation anywhere in the world to bring us down. If anything, this is what needs to motivate us to be all next to each other to say, there is not going to be a problem we cannot solve if we work together with boots on the ground. So how I do it, Mr. President? You said it. I saw you doing it when you were visiting DC Central Kitchen 25 years ago when we met with action. World Central Kitchen is not a fighting hunger organization. It's an emergency food relief organization. And we specialize in showing up quick and fast and solving the food issues immediately. I just came back from visiting my team in Gaza. Here at CGI, we already committed $100 million that is going to help us do 1 million meals a day, 1 million meals a day over the next year. We have 60 community kitchens. We have 2 World Central Kitchen major kitchens. Next week, we're opening 2 more. This week, today, we reached 427,000 meals. By the end of next month, we will be able to be reaching at very least 600,000. And before the end of the year, we are reaching 1 million meals. This is what makes us keep going. The people of Gaza don't want our pity, they want our respect. World Central Kitchen doesn't feed anybody. It's the thousands of Palestinians working with us feeding Palestinians. That's the way to do it, the only way to do it. But at the same time, what is good for you must be good for me. In the first day, we were in Israel. Why? Because it was the right thing to do, because the people of Israel needed our aid. The next day, we were in Gaza. Why? Because the people of Gaza needed our aid. What is good for you must be good for me. When they ask me, why are you in Israel? Are you pro-Israeli? I say, yes. Why are you in Gaza? Are you pro-Palestinian? I say, yes. The only way we're going to be solving the problems is if we are pro-Israel and pro-Gaza. What is good for you must be good for me. Respect should be given and should be received. That's the only way to do it. So that's what we're doing in Gaza. We're doing water. We partner with UN. We feed a lot of hospitals. I'm with a doctor called Dr. Hassan. My new hero is 6,500 orphans. We are finishing next week the first home and a school for 1,600. And in the next 60 days, we'll have the orphanage, 3 orphanages for 6,500 children finished. This is not just giving a speech, we will do it. We are already building it and giving home to those orphans in the middle of a war inside Gaza. This is what keeps people motivated. When you deliver the promises you make. Very quickly, we are in Ukraine. We are still in Ukraine. We were in Ukraine day 1. We were in Bucha day 1. We were in Kherson day 1. We are now in the front lines mainly feeding especially elderly, that they are too elderly to move. So we make sure we are delivering around 300,000 meals a day to people that they are too old to go anywhere anymore. So we are there making sure that we support all these people that cannot be alone. We are, at the same time, we've been supporting things like school kitchens. The First Lady of Ukraine needed help feeding schools. So it's been many people helping, but we support a big major kitchen in Chernihiv in the north and a big kitchen in the south in Kherson. And with those 2 major kitchens, we are able to be feeding multiple schools in a very big area, and it's the most safe way to be doing it. This is the way we keep doing it, Mr. President. But the thing I'm the happiest, Haiti, I fell in love with Haiti. World Central Kitchen was founded in Haiti. I feel I let down Haiti in the way that it's so much more I believe we can all do, and Haiti keeps being this kind of beautiful place with beautiful people. So we've been putting a lot of emphasis in making sure that in this situation in Haiti, things go better. The best way to take care of the future of a country is taking care of the children. So we've been establishing already over the last year, we are right now in 700 schools, feeding children with 700 kitchens, but making sure that all the food is bought from farmers around every one of the schools. In the process of feeding children, we strengthen the local economy. It's no bullshit, we are doing it. Anybody can go Haiti and watch what we are doing with local partners that know what they are doing. And you said when I say we committed 100 million here in CEI, I just heard Hanin Ahmed from Sudan Mutual Aid. My daughter, President Clinton, was in Chad and Sudan, my young daughter, working with World Food Program. And my daughter has been telling me, Daddy, we have to go to Sudan. We need to help Sudan. We have to be in Sudan. And just listening to Hanin here, and that's why it's so important being here in CEI. I'm going to be committing with a fund I have, Longer Tables, $1 million to the initiative of Hanin in Sudan. And we can keep going, but this is what you've been doing for all of us, Mr. President. Call to action. It's okay we clap, but if you leave now and you do nothing until next year and you come here and clap again, please don't come back.
Another clap.
Make things happen. And if you don't know what, look around you. You will have somebody next to you that will show you the way. I don't do anything. I only find people that show me the way. I'm not empowering them. They are the ones empowering me. God bless.
Thank you. So, we've been doing this a long time in many places. And I have seen him set up these operations. And then I've watched the politicians screw it up in various places. We fed a lot of people in Haiti, but they didn't take advantage of it. And he had a great feeding station on the border of Venezuela and Colombia, which was wildly successful. But there are still problems there. And I want to shift back now to our other panelists. The world is always changing. In the 20 years since we've been doing CGI, it's a very different world on almost every continent. And there are places that are better off, but there are a lot of places that are worse off. So I want to start with you, Madam President. A lot of people thought I was nuts when I got involved in Kosovo, and I told them, I said, you watch, this will be the only place in the modern world where a war has ever been won through our air power, because the Kosovars will never bend, and eventually it will become too expensive for the Serbs to continue the fight, and we'll save more lives doing it this way. So you've already succeeded beyond a lot of people's wildest dreams. But you were the first woman president. You're the youngest president. How are we going to, you look ahead, you look at all the things, look at what's happening to World Health, for example. What have you done, and what do you think other countries should do to make sure that those who are on the right path stay there and get the support they need? Because I know you think about this.
We do every day, and I would say the easiest thing is to try to teach others how to do things, but it's probably not my place to do that, rather than be a hand of support to those who need us right now. And there are plenty of countries that are going through what we had to go through. And, you know, listening to what you had to say earlier, it reminded me of, you know, millions of people around the world who came to our rescue in our time of need. And, you know, today I might be speaking as president, but, you know, years ago I was that child waiting in the line for food, and that child waiting in the line for the support from the WHO. So the children that you're helping today, the women that you're helping today will be sitting here tomorrow. So my first point would be, let's not stop the help. Let's not stop the support for those most in need until the moment when they can get to live in peace. And you said it rightly, the Kosovars would never bend. We would never bend. Because, you know, we were a nation that endured occupation initially for 500 years, and then for another 100 and something years, and not any kind of occupation. Not the kind of occupation that simply tries to push forward their language, the kind of occupation that tries to extinguish you and tries to just destroy you as a nation and deny your existence. But despite of hundreds of years of occupation, we never lost our identity. We never stopped fighting for our right to exist. And the example of the United States of America and other countries around the world standing by Kosovo has turned into such a success story, because today Kosovo is such a strong democracy, is such a resilient nation, as I said, a strong economy, and a country that can deal with challenges, of course with the support of friends, because no nation can make it alone, no matter how big or small, but also a testament that smaller nations too can have an impact. Because we should not be defined by our geography alone, but our impact should be defined by the story that we have to tell. So we continue to share this with the rest of the world without trying to patronize them, because everyone has their own story, and that is different, obviously, from ours. But we try to help them in becoming a resilient democracy, no matter how imperfect the system of democracies is. Becoming a resilient democracy can help you then deal with the rest of the challenges so that we don't go back. There will always be forces that will try to set us back. God knows we have them in our own region. But when you have very strong foundations built on freedom, rule of law, democracy, and human rights, that will help you deal with the challenges. And that's what we try to share with the rest of the world. Because even in becoming a strong economy, our rule of law, democracy, and human rights efforts have helped us. Even when gaining support from the rest of the world, the rule of law, democracy, and human rights have helped us. They have to go hand in hand. And even when we strive to become members of the European Union, our message is that, you know, EU values should go hand in hand with the EU cash, with the EU economic support. If you don't meet those values, if you don't fight for those values, you shouldn't get the economic support that the EU provides. But that is the model that we try to share, as I said, without trying to patronize anyone, because different countries, different regions, different continents face different challenges. But what we've learned is that when you never take your freedoms in general for granted, when you focus on rule of law, democracy, and human rights, economic empowerment and prosperity comes. And third, your strength ultimately lies in your partnerships. You need partners, you need allies, you need friends. And what you stand for and who you stand for in the most difficult times matters a lot. And at the same time, give back. You know, you have to give back. One day, Ukraine will regain its freedom, its total sovereignty, and it will be strong again. It's so important that they give back and support other nations that will be facing such similar conditions. The same way that Kosovo today is supporting Ukraine. Kosovo is supporting nations around the world that are facing the same. And I mean, I wish I didn't have to speak after you, because I thought that should have been the conclusion, but I can't stress enough how important it is to say you don't have to be in politics to make a huge change in the world. You don't have to have an important position to do great things like what we've heard. Feeding a child that is in need changes more than just one life. It changes societies. It changes the world in its entirety. So much more than all of the speeches together that we can hold. So thank you for what you do. I can't explain how much it means to those children, because I've been one of them. I've been one of them, and so have all the children of course.
Thank you. We run over time, but I'd love all these stories. I
like
have
a
to,
lot of time, like over. I mean, the screen is going to explode.
I want to end with Dr. Tedros, because if you think about it, his story at the end will be either the happiest or the saddest of all, because he became the first African to lead the World Health Organization, a man of unquestioned medical competence and honor and honesty, only to find not only the World Health Organization under assault, but his native land divided by fresh conflict over old divisions that affected his own family. I called him one day just to see how his family was getting on in Ethiopia, and he didn't know. He couldn't get the news. And think how you'd feel if you weren't there, you couldn't find out about your family. You're giving your whole life to this cause, and then as soon as it seemed to calm down a little, an existential threat to the World Health Organization emerged in the form of its largest contributor. He's had to deal with that. So how have you kept going, and how do you think that we'll get other young people from Africa, young men and women, to be trained as health workers and go into this work that you have given your life to?
Yeah, and thank you. Of course, the war in Ethiopia pains me. You said it well. I'm myself a war child. I was in Yemen last December 26. And I was there leading a UN mission to negotiate with the Hutus to release our UN colleagues who had been detained by them. And while I was leaving Sana'a, the Sana'a was under attack by Israeli drones. So I survived narrowly. It was close. 2 people in the tower were killed, and our aviation colleague was wounded, was close. And at that time, what came to mind was not what was happening then. The attack or the sound I heard there, very heavy, and everybody was disturbed, and we were running for our lives. But what came to mind is my memories from childhood. The smell, the image, even the sound. This is what we call PTSD. But that made me feel, not just for myself, but I was in Sana'a, and our colleagues pass through this every single day. But I experienced it just for a few minutes, and still takes me back in a memory lane. And then if you take Gaza, he was saying it, I can't imagine how the Gazans could live in that situation with bombardments every day. And in my country as well, I am a war child, and when my kids were growing up, there was war, and now there is war. And I lost even closest families, including my uncle. Probably that situation, not only understanding, the impact on me, but understanding what's happening to the rest, like the Gaza or in Sana'a, those who are under conflict, that helps me to understand in the right perspective, and probably encourages me to do more as an individual. So it's not about me, but about what's happening for others, and which is even more serious than what's happening to me. But there was even recently, in 2020, that's when the US withdrawal, the first round came, and there was war in my country, and there was COVID, at the height of COVID. It was a difficult situation. But if there is one thing that I try to see then is, of course, this is the situation, it's beyond my control, but how can I understand the situation and focus on what I can do? And that keeps me going. I think that's the question. But more importantly, I think Jose has done probably more. If you have a mentality of humanity first, and that can give you some balance.
That's good. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. President, folks are trickling out. That means we need to end this session.
Freaking out, yeah.
Let's give them all a hand. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage David Feigenbaum.
Growing up, I was always interested in health and medicine, but it wasn't until I lost my mom to brain cancer during college that I made it my life's mission. In our final conversation, I promised her that I'd dedicate my life to finding treatments for other patients facing deadly conditions. But a few years later, during medical school at UPenn, I found myself in the ICU dying from a disease with no treatments. I nearly died 5 times over the next 3.5 years and was repeatedly told that I was out of options. But I clung on to the hope that maybe there was an existing drug that could be repurposed for me. Just like the 7 chemotherapies that my doctors had saved my life with multiple times before. So I ran experiments on my own blood in the lab and discovered a decades-old transplant drug that was approved for another disease that I began testing on myself. I've now been in remission for over 11 and a half years. Oh, thank you. Thank you. During this time, I married the love of my life, Caitlin, who was by my side through this all, and we have 2 amazing children. Ever since sirolimus began saving my life, I haven't been able to stop thinking about how many more life-saving cures are sitting at our local pharmacy that could save more patients in need today. And why aren't old, inexpensive drugs being repurposed for new uses? I made it my mission to unlock them, and on March 31st, 2021, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. The voice said, "I have the president on the line." Now, I assumed it was probably the president of the local PTA or maybe a prank because it was the day before April Fool's Day. But then I heard, "David, it's Bill Clinton." President Clinton had read my book, Chasing My Cure, and he was struck by the idea that my cure had been sitting there all along. He asked how many more cures I thought were waiting to be uncovered. I told him that we don't know, but there aren't incentives to find new uses for old drugs, and no one has taken responsibility for finding them. And I told him that my lab at UPenn had already identified nearly 10 repurposed treatments, and I dreamed of starting a nonprofit to unlock every hidden cure. He told me that he thought I should do it, and if I did, I should launch it here at CGI. That's right. So with my co-founders, Grant Mitchell and Tracy Sikora, we launched Every Cure on this very stage in September 2022. And I've learned I was wearing this very tie. I was so nervous, but picturing the faces of patients that we'd saved, the thousands of patients we'd saved with existing drugs, and the millions more who could benefit gave me the strength that I needed. And your encouragement helped us to push through the challenges and make so much progress. Since then, we've raised the funding needed to build a world-class 50-member team and powerful AI platform that maps every drug against every disease to identify the most impactful repurposed treatments. Thank you. One recent discovery saved a father who was just days away from hospice care. Instead of saying goodbye to his wife and daughter, he's now living in what I call overtime, where he makes the most of every second. We've already identified and advanced 9 active repurposing programs, from lidocaine injections to potentially reduce recurrence of breast cancer, to an old drug that can help children with a rare neurodevelopmental condition to have their feeding tube taken out, to sit up and even walk and play with their siblings if started early enough. Looking ahead, we'll continue to advance the most promising repurposed treatments across all diseases through lab studies and clinical trials, and the incredible partners who have made our work possible, and hopefully new ones, maybe some that are in this room, who help to enable us to do even more work. We're also seeking partners to fund a new impact team and awareness campaigns to ensure that once these medicines are proven to be effective, they can reach every patient who needs them. And we'll keep raising awareness through my recently released TED Talk that just came out, and also a feature film that's in development based on my book, Chasing My Cure. For the CGI community, I encourage you to reflect on what you're hoping for right now, and then turn your hope into action. I've learned that hope, action, and impact form a powerful circuit, each one fueling the other. And that's what CGI is all about. Not just talking, but doing. But we can't do it alone. We've got to join together. People all over the world are waiting for us. I hope you'll join us to help unlock dozens of hidden cures and get them to patients as quickly as possible by donating funds, research services, marketing support, or other partnership ideas that you might have. To me, the legacy of CGI is measured in the lives changed through the connections and commitments that are made here. It's proof that when we come together across sectors and borders, we can take on the world's toughest challenges. And as someone whose life was saved by a hidden cure and who knows many more are waiting, I can tell you the best part is we're just getting started. Thank you all so much.
Coming up, President Bill Clinton. Please welcome to the stage Wamimo Abbey, Mo Abudu, and Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton.
We're getting toward the end, but this is one of the most incredible duos you will ever meet. People who had a dream and have been working to implement it. And I'm just going to dive right in. I want to start with someone who I met some years ago, right? And that is Mo. And Mo has been on the front lines of figuring out how to create a business and a business that has a social purpose, I think it's fair to say. Do you want to tell us what that is?
Secretary Clinton, thank you so much for the honor of being here to chat with you. The last time we did this, it was the other way around, and I was asking you the questions. That was nearly 20 years ago.
Oh.
And I want to say a big thank you, because it was literally at the beginning of my talk show career. I pivoted from being a head of human resources in an oil and gas company. And you know, when you have that thing that's buried deep in your heart, I mean, I was brought up in a small town in Tunbridge Wells in Kent, in the UK. I was probably one of 3 or 4 black people in the entire town. And you have spent your life defending who you are, telling them who you are, you know. And it took me, I was 40 before I realized that I had to do something about it. So very early on in my career, I started with a talk show. You were actually one of my very first guests.
I remember.
And I was scared. I won't say the other part of, you know that word, when you're scared, when the other word starts with an S. I was like, oh my God. And it was such an opportunity. And what you did for me is that the key question that I asked was, how do we change this stereotypical view that the world has of the continent? How do we change this despair, this disaster, this destruction, this vision that the world has created for us? How do we take charge? And you said to me nearly 20 years ago, Mo, you and people like you need to be speaking on behalf of the continent. Yes. And that has been my trigger for the last 20 years. And even when I get tired, I think of the words that you shared with me and said, Mo, even after the interview backstage, you said, Mo, go out there, you can do this. And I want to thank you for that, because we all need someone in our lives that can push us, that can say, you can do it, especially when it is someone that you have respected for so long. So thank you. 20 years later, 20 years later, here I am, doing what I should have started doing before I turned 40, but only had the guts to start doing when I did turn 40. And that's been capacity building with regards to launching Ebony Life Creative Academy and training up and coming filmmakers. Because again, for our continent of Africa, it's about identifying what the challenges are and turning those into opportunities.
That's right.
That's all, and because I wanted to be in that space of storytelling, I had to look at that entire ecosystem and say, what are the challenges, and how do I turn those into opportunities? So it's been capacity building, it's been media in terms of, you know, film productions and TV series. It's also been living the experience. So we have a place in Nigeria now called Ebony Life Place, where you can come and watch films. We have a hotel, we have restaurants. People often say, wow, am I in Nigeria? Yes, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Yes, you are in Nigeria. You know, it's about funding. We're working with the IFC and the AFDB on a fund, a film fund, because the challenge is, how do we scale and make films that can travel around the world? We can't do that without the necessary funding to do so. Distribution. We just signed a historic agreement with Sony Pictures Releasing to start releasing African films around the world.
That's great.
It's the first time it's happening.
That's great.
It's never happened in the history of African film. You make a film in Nigeria, it pretty much stays there. It may travel to 1 or 2 places, but never through the normal structured way. But for the first time now, we can make a film in Africa that can come to a cinema near you, that hopefully you're going to watch, and you're going to learn about our culture and have a little bit more respect for who we are. Because without that communication and that narrative and that storytelling, you don't know me. Yeah. You will never know me, but I know you guys. Because I was brought up just watching, you know, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. So that's the journey.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you again. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I loved our conversation all those years ago because your intense feeling that there were stories to be told about the African continent, about the lives of people throughout Africa was so passionate. And what I really appreciated was how you then took it from an idea to a reality. And I think we're going to hear a lot more from and about you, Mo. But I want to turn now to Wamimo, who started with us how many years ago as a CGI intern?
12 years ago.
So for all the interns, there's a future for you. And I want you to tell us your journey as well, and how you end up now sitting at this CGI meeting talking about what you've created.
Thanks a lot, Madam Secretary, and such a joy to be back here. How's everyone doing? You know, I grew up in a Baptist church, so when we say how's everyone doing, we need the energy. How's everyone doing? There we go. There we go. My journey started in the slums of Lagos, Nigeria. I lost my father at the age of 2, and I was raised by my mother and 2 very spirited sisters. And one thing my mother fundamentally believed in was the power of education. She afforded my school fees by paying 60% of her salary working at the National Post Office to make sure I went to one of the finest high schools in Nigeria. And that experience opened my eyes to the destitution of my social position, but also showed me that what the rich kids in my school were doing, I could do better. And that was what led me to immigrate from 80-degree weather in Lagos to negative 22 degrees in Minnesota. I wondered, do people live in a freezer? But now, when my New York and Los Angeles friends, you know, find out that I love to deer hunt and ice fish, they look at me crazy. But coming to the United States, something important happened. My mother and I did not have a credit score. We walked into one of the biggest financial institutions in Minneapolis to borrow money. And we were turned away and had to go borrow money from a predatory lender at over 400% interest rate. My mother sold my dad's wedding ring. We borrowed money from church members, and that's how we started in this great country. When my co-founder and I met also at CGI, at Clinton Global Initiative University Conference, we had an unapologetic vision that where you come from, the color of your skin, and particularly your financial identity shouldn't determine where you end up in the greatest country the world has ever seen. And that's what led us to create Esusu, a company now from a kid that grew up in the slums of Lagos, Nigeria, that's now valued at $1 billion, and showing that if you work hard and play by the rules, the sky is not the limit, but it's your launch pad.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I mean, both of you are so inspirational, and I want you, in the time we have together, the remaining minutes, to tell me, our audience, and really all of the people who are watching it being streamed and will watch it, you know, in the future on the CGI TV station that we've started. So I'll start with you, Mo. So you've achieved so much. What would you want to see happen in Nigeria, in Africa, in, you know, the continent in general, that would provide more opportunity for more people, so there could be more Mo's sitting on this stage in 10 years or 20 years? What are the ingredients for that kind of success?
Such a brilliant question, Madam Secretary. We have the youngest youth population in the globe.
Yes.
And I think it's an advantage for us.
Good.
And I think what we need to do is to nurture them. It's to ensure that there's capacity for them to be able to achieve their dreams. And the only way that we can do that, I believe one of the fastest ways to do that is the economy, selfishly, the creative economy within which I am a part of. We've seen what's happened with our music. We've seen what's happening with our fashion. We can do the same with our film. We can expand that ecosystem to ensure that we're able to scale. I think the challenge often is that the ability to scale isn't present. So the thing is, if you make a film for $1, you make a 10% margin on $1. It's as simple as that. You make a film for $100, you make a margin on it. So for me, what I have spent my time doing is expanding and scaling So can I train more people to become actors and producers and directors and script writers and fashion designers and so on and so forth? Can I get more investment in ensuring that we can produce more films that can travel around the world so that we can monetize? You can make something in Naira, you can get a return in dollar, you can get a return in pounds, right? It's about distribution. I'm also working on a streaming platform at the moment. I woke up at the beginning of this year and I said to myself, how do our producers get their films and their content around the world? So we've invested in the technology, we've invested in the tech, and we've invested in the content that will sit on the platform. We've invested in the marketing as well. And it's going to be called Ebony Life On Plus, and it will launch hopefully within the next, actually 4 to 6 weeks. We've been working on this for over a year. And it's to ensure that through technology that our stories can travel around the world. And we shouldn't keep waiting for the global organizations in the world to do what we also have capacity to start doing. Exactly. So I think if I look at capacity building, if I look at funding, if I look at distribution, it's to say, how can we scale and bring that? I mean, it's $1 trillion business in the United States of America. When you talk, show business is business. Mm-hmm. It is a real business. There is a return on that investment. So this isn't about aid. It's about saying to our strategic partners, sorry, I'm just getting so passionate here, that we are ready to work with you as partners. We're not begging. You will get a return on your investment because we have the largest youth population on the continent.
That is such a smart economic argument, Mo. I mean, and it reminds me of, the old saying, you can't be what you can't see. So the more you can use the talents and the skills and the energy of the people, particularly the young people in Africa, the more people will be able to see. And people see themselves, yes. And that makes a huge difference. And finally, Wamimo, when I think about you having been at CGI all those years ago, and I think about the story you tell about your mother and her sacrifice and selling the wedding ring and everything that enabled you to come to this country and to create your business, what is your message to young people? And certainly with a focus on, perhaps where you came from, but also where you are, because the youth population of the world is much more connected, right, because of technology. Right. So messages that we used to think of were siloed, right, are now universal. So share with us as we close what your message would be to young people in terms of building that kind of, future for themselves.
Thanks, Madam Secretary. The founding fathers of this country gave us a very, very perpetual assignment to make this union more perfect. We have a lot of work to do to get to that proverbial journey. And when I look back at my experience, 326 investors said no to us. I keep scores. But there are days whereby we're knocked down, myself and Samir, but we get back up. And that applies to each and every one of us in this room. The missions we're doing around the world, the calling even in this country, that the greatest country the world has ever seen. What I want to tell everyone in this room is very, very simple. And it was a message I heard 12 years ago in Arizona. When life gets hard, President Clinton said, be caught trying. When things get really, really tough, sometimes you don't want to get out of bed, be caught trying. Let me ask you a question. How many of us in this room know someone in California? Raise your hand. Good. How many of us know someone in South Dakota? The hands are sparse. It is incumbent on us to talk to people that are fundamentally different than us. We need to go to places like South Dakota and hear people's perspectives so we can not only practice empathy, we can also practice compassionate leadership. We need to think about that, the concept of democracy, as in the United States and around the world, that stays the same for the past 30 years. We need to have a new idea of quantum democracy, one whereby it's wrapped up in the African saying, I am who I am because of who we all are. There's a place for conservatism in the world. There's a place for liberalism in the world. There's a place for capitalism in the world. And yes, there's some things that socialism can do. But it's up to us, each and every one of us, to talk to people that are fundamentally different than us so we can live to the proverbial vision of the founding fathers of this country and hopefully translate to the world to make this union and hopefully the world more perfect. And I want us to do an exercise today. If you're able, you should stand up because we're a gospel. I grew up in the Baptist church here.
I'd like
you
to
can
say
stand up.
Please, I hope before we...
Tell your neighbor, be caught trying.
Be caught trying.
Come on, this is not the church. Turn to the other neighbor and say, be caught trying.
Be caught trying.
That's the ultimate assignment, because if you want to go fast, you can go alone. Or if you want to go far, we must fundamentally go together. God bless you, and God bless you.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
I wanted to say something.
Well, go ahead.
I wanted to just say one more thing. That with storytelling, what it does is that it gives us as a continent, you the opportunity to see the best of us. You have often seen the worst of the continent of Africa. But with what we're doing now, it's to see the best of our music, the best of our fashion, the best of our film, the best of our food, even jollof rice. I hope you've all tasted it. So that's that's the mission.
And the best of our people. Like these
yes.
two. Thank
Please welcome to the stage, Talia Milgram-Alcott.
There are students in classrooms right now who could solve our biggest challenges, cure diseases, reverse climate change, and create entire new industries. In 2011, President Obama called for 100,000 excellent science, technology, engineering, and math teachers to unlock that potential. It was an urgent call that no one, not even the president, could deliver alone. At the time, I had 2 babies at home, and though I didn't know it yet, a third soon on her way. I thought about the world I wanted them to grow up in. I knew that solving our biggest challenges would depend on STEM, yet too few kids had access to inspiring STEM learning. I had to help build a world worthy of them and their generation. That spring, luck connected us with the Clinton Global Initiative. Our first conversation went so long that I literally missed a flight as we talked. Within weeks, we decided that our new organization, 100K in 10, for those 100,000 STEM teachers in a decade, would launch on stage at CGI America. When President Clinton announced our commitment, he went off script. You may have noticed it's something that happens. Everything else we're doing at this conference, this is what he said, I promise. Everything else we're doing at this conference relies on whether this commitment succeeds. People listened, and they acted. We acted. Over the next decade, hundreds of organizations and thousands of people joined us to contribute what they could to this audacious shared goal. And together, we didn't just reach it, we surpassed it, collectively preparing 108,000 STEM teachers in 10 years. But here's what we discovered. The magic wasn't just in the goal, it was in how we achieved it. We learned that solving seemingly impossible challenges requires something most organizations don't have access to: an interconnected network designed to activate people to work together in ways none of them could on their own. That insight spurred us to not stop at 100,000 teachers, but to go beyond. Today, Beyond 100K serves as the connective tissue for more than 200 organizations across every sector, working to end the STEM teacher shortage with equity and belonging. In just the first 2 years, we've prepared 33,000 STEM teachers and supported over 100,000 more. That same lesson, that networks working together can achieve the impossible, it didn't just transform our work in STEM education. It also inspired us to launch the Starfish Institute, a nonprofit consulting firm that helps other pioneering leaders tackle their most intractable problems by building the networks they need to succeed. The students in those classrooms, they're waiting. If you're looking for a way to take action that matters, join Beyond 100K and help end the STEM teacher shortage here in the United States. Or wherever you are, let the Starfish Institute help you build and activate the networks you need to tackle your own impossible goals. We have worked relentlessly, haven't we? But progress can sometimes feel elusive. In the US, 40% of students still score below basic on 8th grade math. More than half of high school students report feeling disengaged from school. Exclusions based on race, ethnicity, and income continue to limit our nation's and the world's potential. But over the past 20 years, the CGI community has shown us how to unlock solutions no one dreamed possible. When I feel most challenged, I return to something President Clinton said in 2012 that has guided me ever since. If all you do is give us 100,000 teachers to assure America's continued prosperity and growth for the next 30 years, that may be worth a lifetime. But if you do it in a way that helps more people understand the power of cooperation, we may literally change the future of this country, the NGO movement, and the world. Because here's what the president understood. When we work together, our potential to build a better future, it's limitless. And now it is my honor to welcome to the stage the man who has brought us all here today and for 20 years and counting. Please join me in welcoming President Bill Clinton.
Well, we've come to the end of two pretty extraordinary days. And this STEM commitment, I think, is a very big deal. I remember years ago when President Obama asked for another 100,000 STEM teachers, and the Congress said no. So the Carnegie Corporation started off with a few partners to try to get 25,000. And pretty soon we had 25 partners and we got more than 100,000. This is that kind of commitment. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank all of our sponsors. Without the sponsors, there would have been no CGI this year. I want to thank Greg Milne and Luke Shield and everybody on the CGI team. They work all year long planning this. I want to thank the Clinton Foundation Group, especially Bob Harrison, who started CGI, and Craig Manassian, Barry Lurie, and Amy Sunderland Fixer. I want to thank my longtime friend Greg Hale. I've known him since he was in kindergarten. And Paul Neville and the Markham Group. And I want to give a big hand from me to you, to all of you who have tried to meet the moment we're living in. And manifest it through our commitments. We have now added more than 100 new commitments that are now valued at $5 billion. That's a pretty good show for us this year. I also want to say a special word of thanks to all of you who made the working groups so productive this year. We just had a hunch that people wanted less talk, more action, more details, get to the bottom of whatever issue we were talking about and figure out what we're going to do. And as Hillary said, you know, we've gotten some really promising new alliances out of the working groups, new commitments, and new plans. We want to do whatever we can to support you because the working groups this year really reflect what's always driven CGI. And frankly, it reflects our belief that we now have a world where things are, in many areas, going in the wrong direction, and it's up to us to try to turn it around as citizens. I have now spent two decades coming onto this stage to champion your efforts, to thank you, to encourage you, sometimes to cajole. It's never been quite like this before. And yet, I think for a lot of us, if we're being honest, we know we should do more. We know that the face of adversity has always been there, not very far from the front lines of a lot of what we were trying to do. And we know now that we can make a difference still. But we have to rely on each other more. And you need to bolster your big brains and big hearts with spines of steel. Instead of taking a step back, as many people are saying, we need to all step forward. Not hostilely, not angrily, but just because we know it's the right thing to do. If we do it that way, we can actually have a good time doing it. When I was very young, I spent years and years and years when I thought people who cared about stuff that I cared about would never prevail in elections. When I was a boy growing up and looking at what I hoped my country would do. Then I turned out to be wrong, thank God. And I had to face the fact that even when my crowd won, we made mistakes too. And there were things that we couldn't always do. I say that because the main thing to do, as the young man said in Hillary's last panel, is to get caught trying. The main thing to do is to turn ourselves in one way or the other into perpetual motion machines. I'm very proud of the life that I've had a chance to live thanks to Hillary and Chelsea and my son-in-law Mark and our grandkids. But I'm still glad that they make me want to spend more time doing this. And so there's a lot we're leaving here not knowing. There's a lot we're leaving here knowing wish weren't true. There are all kinds of things happening we wish weren't happening. But there are also some good things happening, and we're in a position to make more. And one of the many great friends that I have lost as I've gotten older is the great Irish poet Seamus Heaney. On his gravestone is a wonderful line he wrote about the times when we have to walk on air against our better judgment. I always loved that, and I used it in a speech once. But Seamus was a smart man, and he put it on his gravestone. And that's the thing about writing your words out. Somebody will come along and read them. And then next year they will again, and the year after that, and the year after that. Pretty soon a century passes. I can't see the future. I cannot guarantee the success. But I can tell you this. I believe every single one of us who has ever put any time and effort into CGI is glad we did it. I think the country is better off. I think our communities are better off. I think many, many places in the world are better off. We have a personal responsibility to try to make the future better than the past, and to try to do it together. The last 20 years have been the honor of a lifetime for me. I have just loved it. Yes, we didn't solve every problem we set sail to solve, but the world is a better place. And the 500 million people we can identify who have been touched by CGI commitments are actually just the surface, because it's the endeavor to do better and to work with others, to bridge divides, to hold hands instead of clenched fists. Those things are what make life worth living and what will get us through the current rough currents. So, thank you all. Keep walking on air for a long time. And even though Seamus Heaney said he was wrong about one thing, if you do it, it won't be against your better judgment. It's because you'll know it's the only way to keep going no matter what happens. God bless you all. Thank you.